Money FM 89.3, the best of Saturday mornings. Saturday morning sit down.
And joining us to talk about rejection, the sales rejection paradise. What if rejection wasn't something to overcome, but something that we could harness for future success? Joining us to talk all about it is Jit Puru, the author of The Sales Rejection Paradise, How to Maintain Your Momentum and Motivation in Sales. Jit, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Glenn. Thanks for having me. It's good to be back and good to meet you too, Neil.
And a pleasure, my friend. And you've got fans. I've got Rob Salisbury again saying in Sydney, great to see Jit on the show. Treat my buddy well.
Yep. Yeah. Well, he is here, and he's here to tell us about rejection. And give us the first line of this, which I love, which is, we all expect to not be rejected, but you're coming at this from a totally different point of view.
Yep. You see, the thing is, when you're in sales, right? Okay, rejections is part and parcel of the whole process. You know, if we just were to look at like some simple stats, right? You can Google this. You can use ChatGPT to pick up the stats for you. HubSpot and Salesforce, right, put out a report 2024, right? 60% of people say no to you at the first go.
60%.
60%. Of sales, gets rejected
6 out of 10.
First time. 6 out of 10 will say no to you. And 80%, all right, so 48% of salespeople do not follow up, and 44% only follow up once. So out of all of this, right, it takes at least about 4 times of no's before someone says yes, and more than 5 follow-ups before a sale closes. So with this data, and this is 2024 alone, and it's a global study, it's a global survey, right? And this number doesn't change from year to year. It hovers around the same time. So the average closing rate globally for sales is only about 29%. 70% is rejections or unsuccessful attempts.
Mostly because people just don't do enough follow-up. Is that most salespeople don't do enough follow-up?
Yes, most people don't do enough follow-ups, and the buying psychology is such, right? People don't buy. Most people don't buy at the first attempt. They either want to be convinced, they want to do a price comparison, they want to check, they want to see if they like you, because sales starts with relationships first, right? So it takes multiple attempts, but most salespeople kind of give up at the first no or the second no. And that's not because of the act of rejection. The act of rejection is when a client or prospect exercises their right to say no. You and me have all exercised this right before, but the act of rejection triggers the emotion of rejection. And that emotion of rejection is what we feel from within. It's when that emotion triggers more emotions such as doubt, uncertainty. We now start questioning our abilities, our capabilities, and start asking ourselves, am I really cut out for this? Maybe the prospect doesn't like me. So the act of rejection is hardly ever personal. Sometimes it is, right? Sometimes the prospect maybe just doesn't like us. But most time it's never personal, but the emotion of rejection feels very personal.
I mean, that's fascinating, but I'm guessing it would depend on the degree of sales and relationship. For example, the guy at the MRT, let's take insurance, an insurance salesman. The guy at the MRT station, he's getting 90% rejection, probably higher. It's probably like 99% rejection. The guy cold calling, stopping you at the MRT barrier. Nobody wants to talk to him or her. That's a very high level of rejection versus the insurance agent who deals exclusively with high net worth individuals, very close relationship, probably got something like a 90% sales reach. So where are you pitching this? Because I'm guessing people in sales will listen to this and say, yeah, great for that high net worth. I'm the guy doing the cold calls. I'm the guy stopping people out the MRT. How do I deal with that kind of rejection?
Neil, I'm glad you really mentioned that, because that guy that you mentioned at the MRT station trying to stop like 100 people to just get a meeting, I was that guy about 12 years ago.
Just to get people to listen.
I was doing roadshows and events, outsourced sales and marketing, where I was at MRT stations and bus stations and shopping malls, pretty much asking you to sign up for a free HSBC credit card.
Right.
You didn't even have to pay anything.
Yep.
And that was my introduction into how much of rejections you get in a day, because cold calling and events and roadshow, right, believe it or not, the success rate to get a meeting, just to sit down, is about 2%.
I guess that, yeah. That's why I said 99.
98% says no to you in your face. And you're right. So those guys, get a lot more rejections because of the volume of people that they're meeting, per hour. Whereas someone who's dealing with high net worth clients, like in the insurance industry, of course, their activity is much lower, right? Because their activity is much lower, they get lesser rejections. But having said that, all right, knowing your closing rate is what's going to make the difference too. Because even if you're meeting just 3 people a day, and if it's super high net worth, but if 2 out of 3 says no to you,
you only need 1.
You still only have a 30% success rate, and that still gets to you. If you meet 100 people, right, and you have a 20% success rate, and if you meet 3 people and you still have a 20% success rate, that emotions that you feel from within is still the same.
So you're talking about a perspective shift, trying to encourage a perspective shift. So the guy at the MRT or the roadshow, don't take it personally when 99 people say no. You only need 1 or 2 to say yes, because the volume of people coming through is much higher.
Yep. Because if you were to look at sales, right, if you were to strip away all the noise around how difficult, how challenging, how much of rejections there is in sales, sales only boils down to 4 simple steps, and 4 steps alone. And these steps are universal.
All right, 4 steps of sales. Give it to us,
steps of sales, right? Regardless of product, service, or idea, all right? First, you got to have something to sell. Next, you got to look out for the people who may need what you're selling.
Yep.
Third, tell them about what you have. Fourth, ask them if they want to buy what you're selling.
Perfect. Now, the second group in there was actually kind of comes down to sort of qualified buyers.
Yes.
Right? You're looking for a specific group of people that might want to buy, which is where I think the roadshow falls short, right? Because so many people are coming at you. You don't know who's qualified and who's not.
It's mass market.
Who already has a credit card, who doesn't need one, versus somebody who does, let's say, very targeted sales through Sales Navigator in LinkedIn or something. They know those people are at least in the market, right? So there is that. I mean, this isn't a sales course we're talking about this morning on the show, but there is that element of it. Are you actually going to people that might possibly want what you have to sell?
Yeah. So you're right, because when you're doing mass market sales, right, road shows and events, you don't know. You pretty much have like 2 or 3 seconds to get their attention. And the strategy there, of course, is to get that attention so that then you can have a sit down and qualify. Right? But that doesn't mean when they say no to you, you don't feel rejected. Because now you feel the same amount of rejection. But it's a bit more challenging. And that's why the success rate is even lower. It's only like 2% because you can't even qualify. You don't know if you're reaching out to the right people. Right? And the principle behind all of this is this. In times of demotivation, when the rejections hit you so hard, when you've compounded, it's intensified, it isn't your skills to sell that disappear, it's your will to sell. And when your will to sell disappears, no amount of sales skills is going to help you. You know what you need to do, but you no longer feel like doing it.
So I feel like, Neil, I'll let you speak for yourself, but you've experienced this as an author. I experienced this as a coach and a trainer. We go through this. We know what we have to sell, and we believe in what we have to sell. But it's just the constant grind because we are often selling for ourselves.
We're selling ourselves, our talent.
Yeah. And if you don't have an agent, for example, or a business development person doing it for you, it can become very overwhelming for an individual who's a solopreneur, an author, or whatever. Is that part of the thinking in your book, in your new book, The Sales-Rejection Paradox?
Definitely. Because we talked about the 4 steps just now, right? At the end of the 4 steps, either the prospect says no, yes or no. You then just go back to step 1 and you repeat that process all over again. So whether you're a solopreneur, you're an entrepreneur, you're a freelancer, you're part of a big sales force, the process of selling remains the same. But the emotions that you carry with you back to step 1 is going to make the difference for the next cycle. So if you're a solopreneur, you're an entrepreneur, you're running your own business, you're selling yourself, my question to you is going to be this: what are the habits that you have in place? What interventions do you have in place to help you manage every no? Not when you're feeling demotivated, because the moment you're feeling demotivated, it means it has compounded, it has intensified. And that means, one foot is already out of the door, and it's harder to revive or, reignite that flame once you're already feeling extremely demotivated.
The dark cloud gets darker, right?
So, but what do you do after every rejection? Because there needs to be a process. You think about an athlete, right? An athlete warms up before exercising, warms down after exercising. Even if they don't feel tired, it's a process that you got to go through. So what is your process of being in sales? How do you discharge the negative emotions? How do you deal with the rejections that you face in a day so that they don't compound, they don't intensify? And that is where self-coaching methodology comes into place. You say, of course, you can hire a coach, but what about those who can't hire a coach?
Mm-hmm. Can I throw you a little curveball?
Sure.
Listening to you. So, as I understand it, if you've got the skills, if you've got the will, you're halfway there. What if the product is the problem? Now, the reason I'm saying that is, use myself as an example. People are moving away from books. I'm a better writer now than I was 20 years ago, but the product itself is less in demand. The blacksmith trying to sell, trying to horseshoe horses when people are moving to cars. He's got the skill, he's got the will, but the product itself is not in demand as it once was. How do you motivate those kind of salespeople? They've still got to sell the product. It's not their fault that the market is changing. What do they do?
Well, see, there's two things here. Of course, the obvious thing is you could just look into the product and say, hey, do I really still want to sell this
and change
product?
The job,
or do I want to sell something else?
I get that,
and just move it.
I get that point,
But the other thing is this, all right? It's about knowing how many people do you really need to sell to, all right? Just think about this, all right? Because I'm not even going into a specific product, but just think about the number of people that we have in this world now. What's our global population? 7 billion people. All right. If we were to just say that, out of 7 billion people, all right, I just need to have 1% who might want to buy from me. That is still a big number. So I think sometimes we get caught up with all the noise around how difficult it is to get selling, how people are moving away from different products. But the reality is, right, we only need a small percentage, all right, of people to buy, and that's enough to take care of our rice bowl. So what are we looking at? Are we looking at what's making it difficult for us to do our job, or are we looking into where are the people who still need what we're selling?
That's a great answer.
That's a perspective shift, right?
It might only be 100 people, 50 people, 20 people, 1,000 people. It could actually be a very small number.
It could be a small number, but focus on that number.
No, he's absolutely right. I am literally, as we speak, looking for 1% of India's readers.
There you go.
Because I only need 1% of India's children's middle class to read my books, and I'm done. You're absolutely right.
1% of a billion people?
I'll take it.
It's a lot of people.
If everybody would just buy one thing for $1.
Exactly.
Our guest is Jit Puru, the author of the Sales-Rejection Paradox, How to Maintain Your Momentum and Motivation in Sales. Now, you mentioned something, the self-coaching strategy to try to deal with the denial, to try to deal with the no that we might get. Tell us give us a couple of tips on how we can self-coach.
Okay.
If we don't have the money to afford another coach to help us, to get through that dark cloud that might be over us from a bunch of rejections.
Sure. So there's one technique that I share in the book, which I also teach to a lot of people that I speak to. It's a self-coaching process. It's a journaling exercise. For this exercise, you will need a pen and paper, right? And my recommendation is always this: have a journal with you, a book that you can write your thoughts, whatever it is. And the idea behind journaling is this: a lot of times we keep a lot of things in our head and we suppress these emotions and these thoughts. Think about it as like an iPhone or any smartphone where you're taking a lot of photographs. Eventually it runs out of space, the phone becomes very slow, it lags, and you need to transfer those out. So what we're doing with journaling, we are transferring whatever that we're keeping, suppressing in it, onto an external piece of paper so it frees us up, right? So this self-coaching process is made out of 4 simple questions, and believe me, if you utilize these questions in this logical manner that I'm going to present it to you, it will help you shift your thoughts immediately, right? So whenever you're feeling down, you're feeling demotivated, you're feeling rejected, question number 1, ask yourself, all right, what am I feeling? And write down whatever that comes to mind. the important thing here is this. Don't judge yourself. Don't be over-analytical. Don't be over-critical. Just write down whatever comes to mind. What am I feeling?
I feel like a failure. I feel like nobody loves me. I feel like nobody wants my product, whatever that might be.
Have you read my diary? You've read it, haven't you?
When you were in the loo a short time ago, I picked it up. And
Exactly, Glenn. Exactly. Just write down whatever that comes to mind.
All right, good.
Question number 2. What led me to feel this way? Write down whatever that comes to mind. Okay.
For example,
I spent 2 weeks preparing this great presentation to meet a client, put in my heart and soul into it, gave it my best shot. Client looks at me and just says, nope, not today.
Yeah.
And that made me feel really, really down.
Okay.
So question number 2, what led me to feel this way? Question number 3, it is one of the most important questions you can ask yourself, and it's the question that people hardly ask themselves, right? How much longer do I want to feel this way?
That's a good one.
How much longer do I want to feel this way? Because the reality is this, right? It is our right to feel demotivated. We can feel sad. We can feel demotivated. We can feel frustrated. We can feel angry. It's never about not feeling our emotions. It's about taking ownership of how long do we want to feel that way. Most times, we feel how we feel unconsciously, and we allow it to just consume us, whether a day, a week, a month.
Totally.
Right? So take ownership. If your answer to this question is, I want to feel demotivated for a week, so be it. Own it, live with it, be demotivated for a week.
Enjoy your week.
And enjoy your week. And then after that week, all right, you know what? It's back to business. If your answer is, I want to feel demotivated for a month, so be it. But chances are, the moment you ask yourself this question, it's going to trigger self-awareness within you. All learning and all transformation only happens with a measure of self-awareness. Most times, we are not self-aware. This question triggers self-awareness. So the moment we ask ourselves, how much longer do we want to feel this way? And if it's a negative emotion, chances are we're going to say, I no longer want to feel this way. And that will lead us to question number 4, which is, what must I do next to feel better? So these 4 questions has to be asked in this logical flow and in exactly the way that I've presented it to you. And what it does is this. It shifts you from a victim's mentality, a victim's mindset, towards a solution finder's mindset. Because the reality is, you don't need me, you don't need any coach to give you the answers, because you have all the answers within you. But when you ask the right questions, the answers will show up.
Just need to unpack them the right way.
We have, I want to get to them before we run out of time. We have some comments from our listeners for you. And one wants to know, Jit says, they liked your comment about aggressive sales follow-up. I think this is from Kelly. She says, you mentioned only 29% of salespeople follow up. Is that correct?
No. So let me see. What was the stats just now? 48% do not follow up.
Okay.
And 44% only follow up once.
Okay. Well, just go with her figures. Yeah. But she said 29% of salespeople follow up. Maybe that's because the balance, the 71%, salespeople are aware, this is the key point, that people these days don't like or appreciate aggressive sales follow-ups. And I'll be honest, I'm one of those guys, when the bank calls me, I say no, but then they call me back again 2 weeks later. What would you say to that?
So I think it's this, right? I think the key word here is aggressive. Even me personally, I don't believe in aggressive follow-up, because I think it just shuts people off. There's this psychological principle or sales psychology that says this: people love to buy, but people don't like to be sold to. All right. So aggressive follow-up, to me, I think stems from this age-old teaching of ABC, always be closing. Which in my opinion, I don't think it works, because people don't like aggressive follow-up. So the question now is this, right? It's about looking at the industry that you're in and the type of business that you're in. Obviously, if you're doing cold calling, you're doing mass market selling, to me, right, following up on this it's a losing battle, right? Because you've called the person, they slammed the phone down on you, what is there to follow up? All right? And that's mass market, which means move on to the next one. Work the numbers game. If it's 100 to 1 and you want to close 10 sales, then call 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Done. Right? Because it's a mass market strategy. But if you're selling insurance, for that matter, you have presented a presentation to a client. Client says, hey, you know what, let me think about it. And then you don't follow up, which is what happens to 48% of the time. People take that, let me think about it personally, Right? They forget about the client, they move on to the next one, they don't follow up. But the client never said no. Some clients may even say, no, you know what, I'm not ready yet. At this time, it's not good for me. But that doesn't mean 6 months from now, you can't check in with the client again. Or a year from now, check in again. So you've got to have a system. You've got to have this like a spreadsheet. Okay, I've put my first approach now. Client said it's not ready now. No worries. Check back again in 6 months. Check back in a year. And in this 6 months, it's not about leaving the client and then coming back 6 months later just to say, do you want to buy now? What relationship building strategies are you doing in this 6 months? Are you still keeping in touch? Are you still communicating with this client? That's got nothing to do with sales.
The whole CRM, customer relationship managing kind of thought. Yeah.
So that's where following up comes from, because I think most times people just say they accept the no to personally, and then they never nurture or never follow up with the client after that.
Oh.
Fascinating.
Was there another question?
No, that was all. Yeah, that was from Kelly. Yeah.
All right, Jet. Real quickly, you are also running a publishing house.
Yes, sir.
Rishita Books. And you see this rejection all the time. In fact, maybe you're responsible for some of it.
Yeah.
How do you apply your book, The Sales-Rejection Paradox, to your own situation and what you're seeing?
Sorry, just to understand this question a little bit more, how do I apply the sales-rejection paradox?
I mean, because, look, you have people approaching you.
Oh, yeah.
That want to, so from the other side of the coin.
Okay. Well, I think the reality is this, right? When I started the publishing house, it was really to help people with a great story or great tools, great methods to get their book out there. So my take has always been this. If someone does approach me that they want to get their books published, they need help, my goal is to help them get a good book out. It's not to say no to them and only work with the best, but it's about looking at this person, seeing where they're at, and how can I best help them to get the best book out. So I've not said no to anyone yet at this point of time, and I don't intend to say no to anyone, but the goal is always to help people get the best book out. It may take a long process for some people, but hey, end of the day, if it's a book that we can both be proud of, I think that's a win-win.
There you go. Jit, if somebody wants to get in touch with you for more information about the Sales Rejection Paradox or your publishing company, how do they find you?
I think just Google and you'll find me. Just Jit Puru, and you'll definitely find some link out there. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on YouTube.
He's everywhere.
You're right. Jit, thank you so much for being with us today. Really appreciate it.
Glenn, thank you so much for having me. Neil, it's been a pleasure as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.